This is our 12th episode of Generative AI in Enterprise. I started this meetup like back in December, and then from one week to another week, and hopefully there are like more interesting topics that will be taken care of in the future. So today's topic is T20 cricket status, and this is a small application, a chatbot built by our friend Saurabh. Saurabh is from Delhi, so he woke up early in the morning, 6:30 in the morning, for this meetup. So thank you, Saurabh, so much for taking the time out to share your excitement and your research work as well. So being said that, I'll quickly share my screen. Today's topic is T20 cricket status. Saurabh, you're from the financial services background working in Capgemini. You have almost 3 years of experience in the industry right now. From my side, I'm Ujjwal Bhattacharjee, working in the financial industry, also like running this meetup group called Generative AI in Enterprise. The video recording will be available in Curious Circuits YouTube channel. You can scan your QR code over here. So we'll do a quick introduction. So this is our agenda. We'll do a quick introduction. We'll also try to understand our participants or the audience. Over here, we'll do a quick disclaimer, housekeeping, and then we'll jump into the topic of the day. Disclaimer, this is solely my own initiative, nothing to do with my employer. Housekeeping, you can feel free to turn on your camera. We'll like to shoot, but it's optional. Microphone will try to be on mute. If you have any question, you can raise the hand, use the chat function, or you can also ask some question, that's fine. We'll try to wrap it up by 40 minutes from here on. So let's connect with Saurabh. Who is Saurabh? So Saurabh, you are a data scientist and more importantly, data curious. I really like that. Data curious, professional with 3 years of experience. You have worked in 3 different startups till now. You're a data science blogger, open source contributor, and you believe in sharing knowledge. So that's amazing. And it shows, right? I mean, you woke up 6:30 in the morning. So being said that, this is how you can connect with Saurabh, and you can also connect with me on LinkedIn. And Saurabh, take it forward from here. What do you have? And tell a little bit about yourself, and then take it forward from there. T20 cricket status. At the end, we'll keep some questions. We'll have some questions. I have a slide for all the questions. Let it come in, and we'll capture all the questions during the presentation, and then we'll try to ask those questions. So I'll stop sharing. Saurabh, over to you.
Yeah, first of all, I would like to thank Ujjwal for giving me this opportunity to present the project. So it is
You're
lovely to
welcome.
meet everyone here. And so I hope this 1 hour session is very fruitful for everyone. And I feel
It
very
will.
motivated to speak in front of everyone. And on that positive note, let's get started with the session. So today I'll be speaking on a generative AI POC project that I have created for myself as a fun project. And this system is basically a small chatbot that lets a user chat with the system related to any queries of the players who play T20 international cricket. As we go ahead in this session, I'm very hopeful that you will understand each and every part of this project. I will just give you some agenda for today's session and consider myself as a travel guide and believe that you are on a travel journey with me for the next 1 hour. And as a good travel guide, I will be telling you various destinations that we will be visiting here. So basically, we will be going through 7 different concepts or 7 different tasks that I have encountered in my journey for this project. And let me share everything regarding this with you all. So we will start with the basic introduction of the project. So we will just see what was the overview of this project and what was the basic intuition behind it. Then later we will try to figure out these 3 questions that uh, anyone gets whenever they start a new project. So these 3 questions are basically why are we doing this kind of project and what it will give us once we achieve it. So it is a very important question that we need to answer, like why is everything helpful for us related to this. And the second question is what is this project and what actually is the output of this project, what it looks like for a end user. So we'll also see that what this actually project seems to us after it is completed. And once we are able to answer these couple of questions, then the third question, or which is the most important question, is how we are going to achieve this solution, how we are going to do it, how we are going to code everything in Python or any coding language. So these three, once we are able to answer these three main questions, it becomes very easy for us to understand any system. So we will be going through these steps so that we understand it a better way. And once we are able to implement this system, then we can think about some future scenarios, like how we can improve this system further, how we can achieve better performance, and we can brainstorm some ideas related to it. We can also have some discussions related to it, but we can have that later once I have completed the presentation. And later on, I will also try to share some generative AI resources which I myself found very helpful and hope you guys also find that very helpful. And once we cover all these six things, then we can just summarize the entire journey in a nutshell and just rewind everything in our head so that once we go out of this meet, we can easily tell anyone or any of our friends that what we have learned from the 1 hour session. So having said that, let's just deep dive into this topic or into this project. So if I have to just give you an introduction related to this project. So this project is basically a generative AI chatbot that will interact with the user so that a user can ask any questions related to the players who play cricket at the international level. And this chatbot will give you any solutions within a couple of minutes or a couple of seconds. So in a sentence, I can say that this is a chatbot that will interact with the user so that it is able to answer any user question based on cricket player who play T20 internationals. Even if you don't understand much of it, as we go on, you will understand more and in-depth knowledge about this. So we will try to answer the question that why is this particular project important and why I am trying to solve this project. What was my motivation behind this project? So there were basically four reasons that inspired me to go on and work on this project. The first main reason was there was a huge hype around generative AI in 2023. It was because of OpenAI and the social media was flooded with OpenAI and ChatGPT. So it got me thinking that what is this generative AI related to? And as a data scientist, I should be knowing every new coming trends related to data science. So I knew that always wanted to work on generative AI, but the main question arise was how do I get started related to generative AI? So there were multiple use cases related to it. But I also saw that there is a use case called RAG. So I saw that various frameworks like LangChain and Llama Index was working extensively in it. And I thought, how about creating a project? Because to learn and understand anything, it is better for us to create or dive into it directly and start working on it. So it was clear for me that I have to work on a RAG use case that will help me understand more about this generative AI topic. But the next step was which data set I have to focus because I can't just take any data set because I don't have any domain expertise related to it. And also I wanted to make this journey very fun for me and easy to me to understand. And because of my interest in sports, I decided that let's take a data set related to sports so that I have basic understanding about the sport and that will give me some of the domain knowledge and it will be very helpful for me later on. So related to sports, I decided to use the cricket dataset because I watch cricket and many of you guys should be also watching cricket. And also the T20 World Cup is coming next. So I thought about collecting some T20 data. So this led me to the solution to the question that why is this particular project selected from me? Because of these four reasons. And after having answered this question, then I had to visualize how this project should be looking, how the output should be looking for the end user. So I will show you what I had visualized and what I got as an output. So this is the demo video of the output system. And let me say about something about this. This system has a dialog box initially that lets a user enter his query in the text box. So once you enter your query and you select the answer button, you will get a response from the chatbot. So here I will be showing couple of questions. The first question will be in form of text, and the answer will also be in a form of text. And in the second question, the question will be in form of text and the answer will be in form of numerical value. So these couple of questions are diverse related to each other. So just let me show you the demo so that you will understand more about it. So the first question that I will try to ask to the system is which Australian batsman has the most runs? And I hope this system gives me a right answer. So this system gives me an answer as David Warner, which is right. So it has successfully given us the first answer in form of text. So the next question that I will be asking is what is the average of Virat Kohli? And it gives us 52.66. And this is right in context to the data that I have provided. It may be different now because Virat Kohli may have played another games and his average may have dropped. Also, this is something that we need to visualize before starting our project, that what is the output we are looking for and how we can achieve that. So we have basically understood two of the main questions, like why are we doing this project and what is this application or what are we trying to achieve. Then the next step is how we are going to achieve this, because this is the main crux of the project. So what we can do is we can figure out some, just a second. Uh, So what we can do is we can create some mental map related to the process. We will try to break down the entire system into smaller parts and try to solve all these parts individually so that it will give us a end system at the end. So we will divide the entire system into four parts. We will first try to understand what is RAG, because I have spoken about RAG, but I don't think you all guys understand what is RAG, or you must not have encountered this word earlier. So we'll try to understand what is RAG. Then we will understand how we can change this RAG, basic RAG, to our custom use case for our particular use case. And once we understand the architecture on the upper level or on the top level, it becomes very easy for us to code this system in form of a code. So I will be using a Python code for developing this entire application. And once we are able to implement everything in a coder form, we can then think how we can add this system in future, like how we can improve this system in future, and we can brainstorm various ideas related to it. So we will try to answer each and every point here so that we get more understanding on this topic. So we will start by understanding what is RAG. So RAG is a use case of generative AI. It is retrieval augmented generation. So what it does is try to provide us some solution from the system based on our input or our own data set. If I have to answer this in simple terms. So you can see a diagram in front of you. So this diagram is a basic implementation of RAG, and you can also see there are basically 9 steps involved in this. But before explaining you all the 9 steps, let me tell you that we can divide this architecture in two parts. So in the first part, what we are doing is we are trying to create our knowledge base. So this knowledge base will be created using some custom data that we have. So in the first part, we will focus on how to create this knowledge base, and in the second part, we will focus to think about how we can retrieve particular information from our knowledge base related to the question that we provide, and how we can give the response to the end user. So step number 1 to 4 are involved in the first part, that is how we can create our knowledge base. And step number 5 to 9 are involved in the second part, that is how we can retrieve the data from our knowledge base to the end user. So let's get started from the first part. So initially what we do is we collect all the various data we have and we convert all these data in a singular format before storing in our knowledge base. So what we can do is after collecting various data, we can load that document in a single format in the first step. And in the second step, what we can do is rather than storing the entire data set into the knowledge base, we can just segment this data. So this segmentation can be done using something called as chunks. So we can create some document chunks and divide the entire data set. And we won't be storing any textual data directly. Rather, we will be converting this textual data into numerical format, and this numerical format will be stored in the vector database, which is also our knowledge base. And I will tell you more that why we are converting this textual data into numerical data before storing. There is a valid reason for that, and it will be covered in part 2 of this architecture. And in the fourth step, we will just store this numerical representation into our vector database. And so we have covered from step number 1 to step number 4, and this is how we create our knowledge base. And in the second part, what we'll try to do is we will try to retrieve some useful information from the knowledge base and provide it to the end user. So the second part will start from the question provided from the user. So this question will go to the LLM model, and also this question will be converted into a numerical format. For conversion of textual data to numerical format, we will use something called as embedding. The same concept is also used in the first part. As you can see, embeddings is used uh, in step between 3 and 4. So once we are able to convert the question from textual data to numerical data, then we have to just search in our vector database or the knowledge base. We have to search a similar kind of numerical segment or numerical chunk, which is closely aligned to the question chunk, and we will be just retrieving that numerical chunk, and we will convert this numerical chunk into a textual chunk, and this chunk will be provided to the LLM model. And what this LLM model will input is it will have a question provided from the user, and it will also have some data from the knowledge base, and we will add something called as a prompt. So what this prompt does is it explains the LLM what it has to do, what inputs it will take, and what is the output we require as an end user. So we can experiment multiple things here. We can experiment with various prompts. We can give some styling to the output we require. Multiple things are possible in this step. But basically, we have to just provide our question and we have to retrieve our data and provide it in this step. And once LLM has everything related to the inputs, it will provide us a solution because LLM are super smart. So we have to basically perform these steps so that in the ninth step we are able to get the solution that we require. So in a nutshell, this is how the RAG architecture works, and we have to implement something further to customize this RAG. But I hope this is very helpful for you to understand what is RAG. So in the next step, we will try to understand how we can customize this RAG for our use case. So initially what we'll do is we'll collect all the cricket data set related to T20 internationals. We'll convert that cricket data set into a CSV format and we'll load this CSV using CSV loader. So I have basically used LangChain, but you can also use Llama Index for the same. So once we have loaded our data set, we will just split this data into smaller segments. For example, data 1, data 2, data 3 until data n. And once we have created these textual splits, we have to convert these textual splits into numerical splits. For that, I have used Hugging Face embeddings, but you can also use some paid APIs for that. And after this step, we will convert the textual data into numerical data and we'll store this numerical data in our knowledge base. For that, I have used Face Vector Store. So from here, we have created the first part of RAG system, and now we will be focusing on the second part of the RAG system. So in the second part, what will happen is the user will ask a question. This question will be converted into a numerical form using some Hugging Face embeddings. And after that, some semantic search will be taking place so that we will find out a particular segment from our knowledge base related to the question. And then we can decide how many segments we have to retrieve. For our particular application, we will be just retrieving the top one or the most accurate one related to the question. So we will retrieve one answer from the knowledge base and we'll pass this solution or the retrieved data to our LLM model. For LLM also, we can select any LLM that we require. We can just do experimentation on that. And this LLM will provide us the solution and the user will be given some solution. So this is basically how we can customize the basic RAG in form of a custom RAG. And this is basically the architecture of the system. And this is very important because once we understand the architecture, it is very easy for us to create this system in form of a code because everything we have covered here. So in the next step, we will just go through the code that I have written. I will try to keep it simple so that you guys can understand it easily. Just let me show you the repository that I have created. So this is the repository related to this project and this is totally open source. So you can also clone this repository and you can start working on it in your system. So I have basically provided the output related to the system here. And if you have to install this setup in your systems, the commands are given here. Basically 4 commands and you are done with it. You can start using the system. And this repository contains 5 different files. So the first folder is FAS. So it is the knowledge base of our project. It will contain all the data related to this. And the second file is the README file. It contains all the instructions related to this project like this. The third file is app.py. So this app.py will contain all the logic behind this system and how we can implement this system in the form of code. And later I have a file called as requirements.txt. It contains all the package that we require related to Python because I am using Python. It contains various packages related to Python for this project. And the last file is the dataset that we require. So you can also provide your own dataset related to this. And I have created this dataset from multiple sources. So you guys can also check this out later. And the main part is the logic behind all the system. So I will be explaining you this code. This may sound a bit lengthy, but it is actually very simple. So basically what I have done is I have also performed some backend tasks as well as the front-end task here. So I will first explain the backend part and then we will move towards the front-end part. So initially I have just done some imports required to this project. And then what I'm doing is I am using LangChain in this system for creating the backend application. So how LangChain works is it uses different individual modules and then just chains this module together to create an entire system. So before chaining, we have to declare these individual modules. So we will think about various models that we require. So initially we will require an LLM model, right? So I have created a function for that. And this LLM model, basically I have started working with the Flying T5 model. You can use any of the LLM models, but it was a good starting point for me. So I have used Flying T5 model and I am using Hugging Face for calling this LLM. So then we have declared a LLM model. Then we will be declaring an embeddings model. I'm also using Hugging Face for the same, and you can also use some paid APIs for that also. Then I am declaring a database. So database is basically a knowledge base for us.
Can you
So
please
I
explain about the sorry for
yeah,
interrupt. Can you please explain about this Hugging Face model? I mean, just inside what is this one?
so you want to learn about this LLM, right?
Yeah, correct. Google slash flat T5 base 5. Why you choosing this one for this scenario?
Yeah. So we can select various models as well, but Flan T5 being a small LLM and I had to start from a smaller rather than a larger model because of the experimentation purposes. I selected Flying T5, and Flying T5 is an instruction fine-tuned model. So it is good on multiple use cases. It is not just good on a particular summarization task or question answering task. It is good on multiple NLP use cases. That is why I used Plantify, and the main motivation was it is smaller in size. So that is why for experimentation purpose, I started with Plantify. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank
Yeah, yeah. So the next step is I have declared a database as a face vector store, and I'll be using this database later on. The next step is I have declared a prompt template. So this prompt template explains the system how we want the input or how we want to provide an output to the end user. So we will be providing context as the retrieve data from our vector store, and we will be providing a question from the user, and then some instructions has been given to the system, like how they have to use the input to give the output. Then I am declaring a custom prompt template. This custom prompt template will make use of the prompt template that we have provided earlier on, and we will also provide some inputs like the a segment we will retrieve from the knowledge base and the question that we are giving to the system. So custom prompt template is something we'll be using later on in our chain. And then we are using a retrieval query chain. So now what we are doing is we have defined individual models, and now we have to just chain this together. So from the hyperparameters, you can see I am passing LLM model here, also passing the knowledge base here. And there are multiple different hyperparameters that we can experiment with. We can learn this from the LangChain model, like what are the different scenarios we can try this on. And I have provided some of the hyperparameters like search query. So we want just a one result from the knowledge base. That is why I'm giving k is equal to 1. And then we are also providing the prompt, that is our custom prompt template, so that LLM knows exactly what type of instructions we want it to perform. So this query chain is ready now, and so that this we can use this later on in our system. And now is the last part of our system, that is we have to create a function which makes use of this chain and answers the any question that user inputs. So Creekbot is a function that is the main part of this project, and this function will make the use of retrieval query chain, which we have defined earlier, and this will provide us an answer that we can just show to the user. And this is basically the backend part of the system. Once we are able to create this Creekbot kind of function, we can just integrate this backend service into our front end. So this was the most of the heavy lifting done in the backend part. And now we can just move towards the front end part and understand how we can design this thing even better. So I have basically used Streamlit for creating this front end application, and we will start with providing the heading to the system. So we can provide any heading as per our need. And later, what we have to do is we have to provide our data set to the system. So I am using a CSV file, right? So that is why I am using CSV loader and providing my data set to this loader variable. Then what we can do is we can store this data in our data variable by working on something called as load functionality or a load function. And now we have our data in our variable. Now the next thing that we need to do is we have to design the front end part. Okay, so we will just go to the designing section. And in designing section, what we will do is we will maintain a couple of lists. So one list will contain all the messages from the user, and one list will contain all the messages from the system. So for user, I am using user list, and for system system responses, I am using assistant list, and I am using something called as session state because I want to keep this list intact. Even though we get some response from the LLM, we want to keep on adding on this list, not keep refreshing this list. So that is why we need to store it in form of session state. So I have provided couple of, not couple of, just a single entries on our list. For example, user will have first entry as hey there, and the system will provide us hello, I am a crickbot and I am ready to help with your doubts in cricket. So as we go on, we will try to append this list and give this list to the end user. Then the actual designing part starts. So initially we will declare a container, all the playground related to this system. And what we have to do is inside this container we will be design various elements, and we'll try to showcase this to our end users. And what we'll start is we will start with showcasing some kind of form to the end user, and this form will contain a dialog box. So if you can recall from the system, we had a dialog box here. So this dialog box will contain the user input, and then our chatting begins. So so we will be using user input for taking input from the user, and then we are showcasing a submit button. So that once the submit button is clicked, then our clickbot functionality from the backend will start, and this functionality will give us some result, and we'll be storing that result in our output variable. And once this step are done, we will try to append this inputs to our list, and we will just keep on adding user input and output given from the LLM. And once this appending is done, the next thing we have to do is we have to showcase this list to the system or the end users. So we will be designing the outputs of this list. And one thing you have noticed that the system gives a solution in the left panel, and the user messages are in the right panel. So this thing also we need to design. So this is designed in the last part of this code. So by providing this parameter is user is equal to true, we are showing this right side messages of the user, and left side without providing this particular hyperparameter we are showing as left side for the system output. And this is basically the code base that I have written, and it is a very simple. Now that I have explained everything related to this, and we can move ahead in our presentation. So this was basically the code walkthrough related to this. And the next thing is we can also think about various future enhancement that we can do. So I have written a couple of them, and maybe at the end of the session we can discuss various things related to this also. But I'll just state some of the things that I have thought. So one thing that we can do is we can use some better embedding models, right? Because we have to search something very similar to the user's question. So better embedding models means that we can convert our textual data into numerical form into a better way. So there are distinct conversion happening for each and every segment. So we can use a better embedding model. Then the next step we can do is we can use some closed source model like OpenAI APIs or Google Bard, something like that, rather than using open source, because we know that closed source models are not so good compared to the open source model are not so good compared to the closed source model. And also multiple models are coming up like Llama 2 is very good. So we can also experiment with different kinds of LLM. And also one more thing that I noticed was UI that I have created. It was created using Streamlit, but we can also use proper front-end applications like React or Angular for creating the front end, so that look and feel will be improved using those libraries. And one point that I forgot to mention here is we can also experiment with Llama index framework. So I have explained everything related to LangChain, but Llama index is very good in context to RAG applications. And also they have done much of the work recently in RAG. So we can also experiment with the Llama index framework for this. And We can also discuss ahead further related to this. And the next part is I will also try to share some of the resources which can be handy for you guys. So I have written a couple of blogs here. As Ujjwal mentioned earlier, I'm also a blogger. So these blogs are entirely free. And if you are interested in learning more about generative AI, you can just have a look into this. There are very short blogs from couple of minutes to 3 minutes, and they are entirely free. So you can improve your knowledge related to the generative AI. And I am also trying to work more on this and expand my knowledge also. So basically, I want to share my knowledge to the community by giving it free. So these are some of the blogs that I have written. And if you get interested in this generative AI, you can also try out some of the short courses given by deep learning. And these are also entirely free and very helpful for newbies like us. And you can expand your knowledge related to this. And
Yeah.
if you want to understand end to end related to generative AI, you can also visit this Coursera course, which is very helpful. It is about 16 hours and it will be very helpful for you guys.
Saurabh, thanks for sharing. Can you paste your blog link, which you on the chat, if you don't mind?
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure. I'll do that.
And also, if you can add your GitHub URL, the repo that you were
Yeah.
sharing. So I think
Mhm.
one of our friends wanted to have that GitHub link. So yeah, put the GitHub link, put the blog post, and also maybe the Coursera and the deep
Yeah.
learning way.
So I have
So
a
you're
question.
good, right? You're done pretty much, Saurabh,
I
from
just
your side.
wanted to conclude, just wanted to conclude the entire journey.
Okay.
Yeah, and we will move towards the final stage of our journey and would like to summarize the entire thing that we have gone through. So basically, we went through the motivation of this project. We figured out three questions that was related to the system: that why we are doing this project, what is this project, and how we are going to achieve this project. Then later we understood about what is rack system, the basic architecture of rack, and then we tried to customize this rack for our particular use case. And once the architecture was clear, we just tried to implement everything in modular form using Python. And later we had a discussion related to the future enhancements, and also I shared some generative AI resources. So I hope this is very helpful for us, and I would like to thank you guys for taking out the time and participating. Also, a huge thanks to Ujjwal for giving me this opportunity. And yeah, we can move towards the discussion part.
Yeah, I have a question, Ujjwal, and so
Yeah.
sorry. So if you do, you are calling first the vector DB, you get a
Mm.
response from the similarity of question, then you are calling to LLM, right? So in case of when you call to vector DB, you get a response is lot. Example, you are calculating the your transaction details. Example, you do you want the transaction details? You are getting a large amount of data. So that amount of data, the vector embedded data, how you are calling to LLM if the size is more?
Yeah. So what we are doing is we are storing the chunks, right? So there is a parameter that we can store the size of the chunk. So if you want to store the segments in smaller part, so you can also use something called a chunk size earlier on while doing the part one of the architecture. So that while retrieving, you will get a smaller data. Rather than having huge sentences, we can search for three or more segments of smaller size and combine these segments and provide the solution to the user.
Mhm, okay, okay. Yeah, okay.
Good.
Achha,
So basically, what you're saying is like chunk the data, store it
Hmm.
into vector, but then you're doing semantic search to do some, either keyword match or semantic, similarity search, right? To get some response back, and then you're sending that little response back to the LLM, not the whole data set back to the LLM, right?
y-
Is that
Yeah,
correct?
So when you sending to LLM, the response what we getting from the vector DB, it's a large data. I mean, for FAISS, nothing but a Facebook related vector index library contain the large data. So how
Hmm.
much we can limit? That is my question. Once we get the response from the vector DB or vector indexes library, so we are calling to LLM. If the data says a used data, how we can call? I mean, in the real time, the data will be changed right every time. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was a hyperparameter, right, that I have set, that is k is equal to 1. So what it means basically is how many segments we are retrieving from our knowledge base. So if you know that our LLM is a smaller LLM and it only works on couple of or 4 to 5 segments, then you can just set that hyperparameter as k is equal to 3 or k is equal to 4, so that it receives the best 4 results from our semantic search, and those 4 segments can be provided to the LLM. So you can just hard code the amount of segments that you want.
So once you get, let's say you said, okay, give me like 3 segments back, right? So basically it's going to do the similarity search and give you back the most, closest matched first 3. And then how
Yes.
are you going to select, like which one out of this 3 are you going to send back to the LLM? Or are you going to send back all the 3?
Yeah, so the best ones are something which we are calculating using distance formula. So what we will do is we'll find a cosine similarity between the both of them, like user question and various segments of the database or the knowledge base. So we will calculate the distances between user and various segments, and whichever segment has the least distance, we will retrieve that, and we can tell them how many number of segments we want, or which are the closest 3 of them. So internally, it calculates the distances.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, internally it's going to calculate the distance when you are chunking and embedding and storing it, right? So when you're embedding, it's going to calculate the distance. Now you went ahead and stored. So after you're done with the storage, you're going to search based on your question, right? And that's what your 5, 6, 7, 8, that other section that you are showing, right? So questions. So now the question comes in, you go back to the vector database. Now you're searching, you're doing a similarity search or a cosine search, right? Based on that, now you get the responses back. I think that's what I missed that last part. You were saying, like, how are you going to, do that similarity search?
No. Actual thing is, distance calculation is done during the semantic search,
Oh,
and
okay,
in
I see.
part we are using an embedding models to convert the textual data into the numerical format. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah. So embedding models will just convert textual data into numerical format, and for semantic search, what it will do is the embedding models will convert the question into numerical format. The knowledge base will already have numerical form of segments, and we will just compare the distances with our user input and the segments in our knowledge base. And whichever are the closest, we will just retrieve those and pass on to the LLM.
Got it. So now you got like 3 segments back. Are you going to send all the 3 segments to the LLM, or are you going to pick one,
I
maybe
think
the top one?
I think you're sending 3 segments, right? 3 segments you are sending to LLM, right?
Yes.
Okay, got it. Good. Next question that I had was, what is the system configuration that you're running right now? If someone wants to like download the GitHub project and run it in their system, is there any specific requirements that you need, or just a regular laptop is good enough?
Regular laptop will be good, but the responses will be slow. But for experimentation purpose, you can work on it, because high configuration is not always easily accessible. So if you just want to experiment, you can work on the basic laptops as well,
Mm.
and no need for any external GPUs as well.
Right. Okay. And this embedding model, you're hosting the embedded model within your system, or you are making outbound call to some third-party APIs? I think you're using open source. So what is the configuration to, you're loading it as part of your Python package itself, right? Okay.
So I'm basically using Hugging Face. So we don't need to store that in our local. We will just do a API call to Hugging Face, and it will
So
provide
you're
us.
making an API call to Hugging Face. You are not hosting the LLM or hosting. Okay. So you're not running the LLM over here. Got it. Okay, makes
Yes.
sense. And same for the embedding model. What embedding model are you using?
Yeah. So LLM and embedding model both are from Hugging Face. So I have used
No, which
the
so for LLM you're using the Plantify. For
yeah, yeah,
embedding, which one are you using?
yeah. So there was a 10x kind of embedding model. So we can also use multiple different embedding models as well. So I have just done experimentation with that particular model, but I'm also
Okay.
working on different kind of embeddings as well.
But in
Okay.
the current
What I,
demo, you're using Tyrrell per slash GTE large embedded, right? Hugging Face embedded.
yes, absolutely right.
Okay. So another question that I have is like, how do you generate the data set, CSV file?
Yeah, so I had multiple files from Kaggle itself, and I didn't wanted to much waste much time in creating data rather than work on the rack. So I have used the process data set from Kaggle and just
Okay.
did some basic processing on the data rather than doing some scraping and everything.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I
Do
think
we
that's all. And eventually, go ahead.
do we need Hugging Face token API as well as LLM API, LLM token API key here? I think you're not added in the core level. Have you adding your class path of your system?
No need for this current system.
Okay, because I did small experiment for the Hugging Face related some other embedded model. There I used the Hugging Face related token. I mean like a UID number, a GUID number. Is it okay
Yeah,
without having
yeah, it is okay. We can use it without the token.
with the token? Okay, thank
Oh,
you.
really? I mean, I have not played around with Hugging Face. I did a lot of work on OpenAI. But then, in order to call the Hugging Face API, you don't need your API key or some token. Is
No,
that
not for
what
this.
the question was?
Yeah, yeah, it was the same question, and I also experimented with that also, and I found a way without using those tokens.
So basically,
Oh, okay.
this is
Interesting.
yeah, opposed to the other models, right? Because you have to pay for those usage of the tokens.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So,
But
but
I
other
never knew like Hugging Face has. Yeah. Go ahead. Anjaya, go ahead.
yeah, other models are mandatory for the token, right, Subhash, Saurabh? So if I use the other Hugging Face related some of the model, so at that time, do I need the Hugging Face related token or that is also optional? You mean to say that?
Yeah, for the better models, we need the token, but if for experimentation purpose, if you are working on some basic model, then we can directly use those.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
Got it.
yeah, I'm visual. Thank you.
Okay.
Please go.
No. I think that's all I have question. I think this was good. So one thing that I know like you are experimenting and you are doing some POCs to understand how this process is going to work. But eventually, in a real world scenario, I mean, like we can get this answer from ChatGPT and Perplexity, right? I mean, so they are already doing all this RAG, and not only RAG, they're already doing this whole internet search and giving you question and answer. So, what do you think in a real world scenario in an organization or an enterprise where this RAG approach will work? Not for
Uh,
cricket status, of course, but so that is your POC. But tell me, like, I mean, I'm not, I'm just trying to experiment with your thought process. Like, what are the things that you feel that people should implement RAG approach in an enterprise?
yeah, so basically we can use the rack if you have some internal data. So if you are working on your company data, then it is good to have a rack. But what I think you are asking is you want some real world data, and RAG is basically worked on the data that we have stored. And
Hmm.
if you need some real time data or the current data, then you can also use something called as agents given by LangChain. And this agent can
Hmm.
what they can do is they will retrieve the live stream data also and provide you with the
Correct. To
current.
make some API calls and all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is very good. Any other questions, anyone? Or
Yeah,
Saurabh?
Yes,
I
sir.
have pasted a link also. Sorry, Sudhir. I have also pasted a.
Yeah, there will
Can
be
you just check if it is?
GitHub link also. That would be great.
Yeah, I think you have the whole PowerPoint, including the GitHub links also over there, right?
Yes.
That's what he's saying.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
So yeah. So you take a look at his presentation, and then he has all the links over there. So good discussion. Thanks everyone for joining. So this meeting will be recorded and shared in our YouTube channel. So if someone needs to kind of like see what was discussed, you can take a look at it. And also we had some very good discussion about MLOps in the last few sessions. So take a look at it. So someone from AWS, GTM EMEA did a presentation on MLOps in enterprise. In real world, how does this whole RAG and what does it mean to actually implement RAG, and what are the pain points and what are the, so this was one of the most interesting discussion that I had on MLOps. So you take a look at it. Some other discussion we had on Llama Guard, responsible AI using Llama Guard, as well as LLM evaluations using different approaches. So you can take a look at it, and I hope that will be also very useful to you. Anyone interested? So being said that, that's all we have.
Yeah.
Saurabh, thanks for your time. I hope you are like get some energy and get some coffee to get started for your day. And
Thank
thanks
you.
Andhya and Sudhir for all the good questions. I'll keep on posting. Sudhir, you said you're not on LinkedIn, but I typically post all the sessions in LinkedIn, but I also post it in meetup.com. So you can check either one of those.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye bye.